This is a tutorial for creating a 7-generation family tree in Microsoft Excel. It goes up to your great-great-great-great-grandparent, that's 64 of them in the final column, and all of this fits on a single landscape printed page. This is with names only. If you prefer a format with dates, this is the exact version that I'm going to walk you through. So we've got a name and a date field below it. If you like to have photos of your ancestors in your family tree, here's an example which fits a photo beside the names of your ancestors up to the 5th generation. There's not quite enough space to squeeze it in for the 6th and 7th generation. This is names, dates, and a photo. So I'm going to walk you through this version. If you find that the whole process is too fiddly, messing around with lines and trying to nudge them into place, we have a pre-formatted bundle, basically this spreadsheet here, which has the 4 formats available for download at the price of a fancy cup of coffee. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go grab that. The first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a new blank page. Step 1 is to set it to landscape mode. Let's go up to File, Print, and here the default for a new sheet is actually portrait, which isn't what we want. We want to set this to the landscape orientation. And when we go back to the page, you'll now see dotted lines that represent the printed area for landscape. I'm going to highlight within this dotted line, and then I'm going to set the print area. So I'm going to page layout, print area, set print area. And now I see a fixed line. I want to be sure that I don't stray outside those lines. When we look at the print area in landscape mode with the default row heights, we can see that it fits 33 rows. We have 64 5th grade grandparents to fit on this page, so this isn't going to work. So I'm going to reduce the row height to about half its current size. I'm going to set it for every single row in the sheet, so I'm hitting Control A to select the entire sheet. Right click anywhere on the sheet, choose row height, and now I am entering 8 and clicking OK. And if you look at where the lines have changed, you can see that this last line here is row 64. I'll be giving you a number of heights, widths, lengths, etc. to set in this tutorial. Don't worry about scribbling notes. I've got all the details in a companion article, and there's a link in the description below. So we've just set the row heights, and here I give the exact height to set. I'm now going to set the column widths. I'm going to start with column A. I'm going to set that width to 3. So click on the letter, right click, choose column width, and set that to 3. Then I'm going to set the columns that hold the name fields. To select multiple columns, you can hold down the Control key and select each column in turn. So I want column B, C, D, E, F, and H. With those selected, right click any of the column letters, choose column width, and set this to 17. I want to set column G to 2. And finally, this last column here, I want to set it to 9. And then I'm just looking at the dotted lines here to make sure that columns A to I, which is the columns we're going to be working with, are within the printed landscape border. I'm now going to create the first person. It's going to be right over on the left, and to do so, I'm going to merge 2 sets of cells. Select cell A32 and B32. Right click, choose Format Cells, switch to the Alignment tab, and check the Merge Cells box. And do the same thing with the 2 cells beneath it. So that's A33 and B33. Right click, Format Cells, and Merge Cells. I'm now going to add an outside border to the 2 merged cells. So just select them both up to the border control and select outside borders. So this cell here will hold the name and the below will hold the date range. So I'm just going to give you an example to show you what it looks like at the current font type and size. As you can see, that doesn't display at all well. So we're going to have to reduce the font size. I find that the default font of Calibri doesn't display well at the lower sizes. I prefer to use a font called Sego UI. I'm going to select the top cell here with the name. Just type in Sego, S-E-G-O-E, and you'll get several fonts that start with that name. And the one that I want is this one, Sego UI. And then I'm going to reduce the font size down to 8. It still doesn't display well, but don't worry, we'll come to that. I want to set the date field now. So I'm going to set this to Sego, again, Sego UI. But this time I want to change the size to slightly smaller than the name field. It just gives a little bit of contrast when it prints out. So instead of setting it to 8, I'm going to set it to 7. Now you don't get 7 as a choice in the drop down, but you can just simply type it in. Okay, still not displaying well, but we're going to change that when we adjust the text alignment. So the text alignment options are up here. So I'm going to select the name field. I'm going to select it to left justified. That's the bottom left option here. And then I'm going to set the vertical alignment to be middle aligned. So in the top row here, it's this middle option, middle alignment. And you can probably see immediately that the name is displaying far more clearly. I then want to adjust the date cell. So I'm selecting the date. I'm changing the vertical alignment this time to be top aligned. So that's over on the left here. And then I'm going to change the horizontal alignment to be centered. I'll just click away, and as you can see, that is now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to format the coloring. I like to use a light blue for males and a light orange for females. In this case, the home person happens to be a female, so I am going to set it to selecting the name field, expand the fill color. The light blue is this option here, blue accent 1, and we will be setting the male ancestors to that color, but I am going to choose the one beside it, which is the orange accent 2. For the visual contrast, I like to have all the date fields, regardless of male or female, to display with a light grey fill color. So I'm selecting the cell A33, back up to the fill color, and the grey that I choose is this grey here. It's the grey accent 3. We're going to create the first male ancestor. Once we have the set of formatted cells for a male ancestor, we can copy those cells to all the other areas for male ancestors in the tree. The first paternal ancestor is, of course, the father. The position of the father starts at cell B16. I'm not going to merge cells at this point. The name and date will fit in 2 separate cells, one on top of the other. I select cells B16 and B17, and then I go up here to the border control to put the outside border into place. I then want to set the font size of the name field to Sego UI and the size to 8. For the date field, I again set it to Sego UI, but this time I type in 7 for the size. I'm going to repeat the alignment, so cell B16 is middle aligned and left justified, while B17, the date field, is top aligned and centered. Then I want to set the coloring for a male ancestor. The name I set to this light blue here, and the date I set to this light grey. The next step is really important. Don't skip this step. If we put in a very long name here, I'll just show you what will happen. As you can see, it's spilling out into the next cell. That doesn't happen with the home person because we're using merged cells, but it would happen to all the other non-merged cells. I want this name to truncate and stay within the border. The easiest way to achieve that is to put a space into the adjacent cell, so into C16. And although my date fields are quite short, I'll also put a space into C17. That means that these cells go together when we copy them to other areas. We'll just clean this up. And now we're going to save ourselves a lot of time by copying our paternal ancestor to the other male ancestors areas. So copy cells B16, C16, B17 and C17 together. So I've selected the 4 cells, Control C, and now I'm going to paste into all the required areas. I've listed the exact cells in the companion article, link in the description below. We're on step 6 here. We'll start with the 3rd generation. We're going to copy the 4 cells into the range starting at C8 and the range starting at C40. So I've got these 4 cells copied. Put your cursor into C8. If you're having difficulty seeing the actual row number because the height has been shortened, up here in the top left, you'll see the name of the cell that you've selected. So C8. I'm hitting Control V for paste, and that pastes the 4 cells. So that is the paternal grandfather. So the next set of cells I want to copy into are for the maternal grandfather, and I said it was C40, which is here. So that's the 3rd generation done. Working now on the 4th generation, D4, D20, D36, and D52. For 4th generation done. Now for the 5th generation, we're going to do the 6th generation. That's it for the 6th generation. The 7th generation looks different in as much as the name field goes here, and for space reasons, the date field goes beside it. That's why I can't just do the copy and paste here. Now we will do the maternal ancestors. So we're going to create the first maternal ancestor. What I'm going to do in order to keep the font positioning, alignment, and that spatial, I'm just going to copy and paste these 4 cells into the position of the mother, which is B48. So now I've got these 4 cells copied with the spaces and the alignment. I'm simply going to change the coloring of the name field to a light orange. Now we've done that, we can copy the 4 cells for the mother, and here we're on step 8, 3rd generation, C24 and C56. So C24 and C56, those are the 2 grandmothers. 4th generation, D12, D28, D44, D60. That is 4th generation done. We're going to have to do something a little different when copying to the 5th generation. This time we're not going to be taking the 4 cells, otherwise we'd overwrite some of the paternal cells, and we don't want to do that. Instead, we're just going to copy the 2 cells, the name field and the date field, that is cells B48 and B49. Just those 2 cells. Select them, Control C. Back to the article, and we're down here on the 5th generation, and this is where I want to copy these 2 cells into. So we've got E6, E14, and E62. So that's the 5th generation. And the 6th generation, we can take the 4 cells. So I'm going to copy the 4 cell range, and then it's quite easy to see where they go. Now, you might find if you have missing ancestors in the 7th generation, and many of us do, you may find that because there's nothing in this field that a 6th generation name spills over. In order to avoid that, I'm going to put a space into this 7th generation. A space into the date field that's beside a name field all the way down. So now we have 6 generations done. Just one more generation to go. The 7th generation looks differently to the others in as much as the name will go here and the date will go into the adjacent cell. So I'm going to take a blue name cell and copy it into H1. And then I'm going to take a orange name cell for the female and copy it into H2. All right. So those two are the parents of this person here. Then the date will come here. So I'm going to take a date field, a grey date field, copy it here and copy it here. And this is what I want all the way down. So now I'm just going to start copying these 4 cells. And one more set. Here we go. One last thing. The borders mightn't be quite right. I want to border around each of these cells. So I'll just select them all, go up to here, and I'll choose all borders for H and I columns. So that's all the name fields done. You got this far? Well done. Now we've just got the connector lines to go. As a reminder, the first set of connector lines from the home person to the parents look like this. To add a line to the spreadsheet, go up to the Insert menu, expand Illustrations, expand Shapes, and choose this line on the left here, not one of the arrows. Once you select it, put your cursor into the vague area of where you want the line to be and drag it horizontally, and that gives us a straight line. The default color is blue. I want it to be black, so I'm going to change it to this black here. And then I am going to set the width. Now the widths for all these lines are in the companion article. I'm working on step 10 here, and I want the width to be 0.25 centimeters. To change the width of the line, right click, choose size and position, and over here on the right, just use the width. Here you can toggle down the widths and up, but it's just as easy to type in 0.25 centimeters. And that, as you see, creates a very short line. You are working with a very short line here, and it's not always easy to see. In fact, the 2 handles, if you like, the circular handles are obscuring the line, but we're going to move it into place. My advice is not to drag and drop it at this stage. Instead of dragging it, use the arrows on your keyboard. They just nudge the position slightly, and that lets you have more accurate positioning. So I'm just going to nudge the right arrow to the right, and I want the right circle there to intersect with the left edge of the name field. So I may have overshot it. I can't see until I click away, and it's not the best of interfaces, but that looks perfect to me. A bit of practice, by the way, and you get the hang of it. So now I want a vertical line. I'll just toggle back to look at the size. We're at the vertical line, and the height will be 4 centimeters. So I'm going to insert another line. Again, just put it vaguely in the place where you want it to be, which will be somewhere around here, and drag your cursor down as straight as you can get it. There you go. That is a straight line. Again, I'm going to change the color to blue. I'm going to right click, size and position, and I am going to up the height to 4 centimeters. I'm just going to type in 4, click enter, and now I have the height that I want. And now I'm going to use the keyboard arrow keys to nudge it into position. And that is exactly what I want. Thankfully, given that these lines here are going to be the exact same size, we can simply copy the lines that we've created. So first I'm going to copy the horizontal line. I've got that now copied and pasted, and I just want to align this horizontal line along that grid line at the bottom of cell A48. And then I copy the vertical line, and that is perfect. So I don't really like inserting lines from scratch because they can be difficult to get to make them straight. So once I have a straight horizontal line and a straight vertical line, I copy them into the next position and I just change the height or width. I'm now going to do the connector lines from the second generation to the third. I'm going to copy this horizontal line, get it roughly into place, and then I'm going to get my width. I've got it in the diagram here where the width is going to be 1.3 centimeters. So I have the line selected and I'm going to up this to 1.3. As you can see, that's a fair bit wider, and now I'm just going to nudge it and get that into place. I'm going to copy a vertical line, get it roughly into place, and then check what the height should be, 1.9 centimeters. So I'm going to change that to 1.85. Copy the horizontal line. Vertical line, that's perfect. Okay, so now you have one set into place. Here's a shortcut to make an exact copy of these lines. Instead of having to do the finicky selecting of individual lines, just select the surrounding cells. Select into cell B8, select the range down to cell B6, is that B15? Copy that, Control C, place your cursor, select into cell B40 and paste. You've got the perfect copy there, right? And then do the same for this set, copy those cells and paste downwards. That definitely will speed up the process as we do the rest of these generations. So that is the second generation. Third generation, I'm going to copy the horizontal line. I think it may be the same width. That is perfect. And now I'm going to use that trick to do the fast copy, which is copying this cell range. That's 4 cells, and then pasting. Right, so we're on a roll here. I think you guessed what happens next. So 1.3 and 0.3. We're going to copy our horizontal line, align it with the bottom grid line of cell D2. And that is perfect. So once again, I'm going to do the copy trick. Okay, so these are getting smaller and smaller. So that's the 5th to 6th generation done, and we're now down to the final hurdle, the 6th to 7th generation. In my article, I give you 2 choices. One is the simple option, and that's just to have a single horizontal line going from the child to the 2 parents. If you want something that's a bit more of the classic family tree look, you can also do this fork option. Tell you what, I will do one simple one and I'll do the the second as the trickier option, and you can make up your own mind. So for the simple option, we're going to copy a horizontal line, bring it around about here, just align it at the bottom of the grid line G1, and then we're going to size it to 0.5 using the arrows to get it into place, and that's it all the way down. If you want to go with the fork option, we take this 0.5 line, because it is going to be in the middle, and then I'm going to half the width down to 0.25. Then I want to copy this vertical line. It is 0.3. I'm going to move it into place. It is going to be about there, and now I'm going to reduce the height to 0.25. Finally, I want two more of these horizontal lines to be the prongs of the fork, and just one more, copying that horizontal line, and that's it. So copy either one of these all the way down. So supposing I want to go with the fork, I'll get rid of my friend up here, and now I'm going to copy these two cells, and that is our completed family tree. Let's see how it looks in print view. File, print, and there you go. Looks great.